All right, hey, I just wanted to check in because I finished another book, Cujo by Stephen King. This is a book that I'm sure everybody's kind of heard of. Everybody's at least heard of the movies or whatever. I have never had any actual experience with Cujo, but I knew that it was a rabid dog, and that's kind of all I've known about him my whole life until I read this, and god damn, I am surprised. I feel like Cujo isn't really brought up as much when we talk about some of Stephen King's classics. Of course, he's mentioned, but I don't hear a lot. I don't hear a lot about Cujo. It's always, Salem's Lot, The Shining, Pet Sematary, Carrie, those kinds of books. And this is mentioned along them, but I feel like maybe it was just me. It was almost a slightly lower tier in most people's recommendations to me. And I have to say, this is possibly one of my favorite Stephen King books. This is up there with Carrie, which is one of my other favorite Stephen King books. I have never felt such a sense of dread while reading, in a good way. It's what is meant throughout this book. I have never actually felt such dread while turning the page. Now, I'm going to preface this with saying I've weirdly been extra, emotional. I felt my emotions a lot more over the last 2 weeks. And, reading this book fucking hit me hard for some reason. So the main point of the story really starts with Cujo going and chasing a rabbit, and chases this rabbit into this cave entrance kind of thing, a hole in the ground. And he puts his head in, kind of gets stuck a little bit, and some bats fly at him and scratch him and attack him. And that gives him rabies. And so this dog that is super innocent, a super good boy, all he wants to do is be a good dog for his masters, and it's so tragic. It's so tragic. He gets rabies, and there's chapters within his mind that are so sad, because at one point he says he's looking at the boy, which is like this 10-year-old boy or whatever, and he says he doesn't even see a boy, he just sees a monster with legs. And it's so sad thinking of what an innocent puppy would go through. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't have kids that dog stuff always hits me so fucking hard. And I just really felt for Cujo. And there was a couple times I had to put the book down and walk away, because I was just like, I gotta give my stomach a break. I was cringing. I felt so bad. But anyway, let me get into a little more of the story of this. Cujo is, like I said, he's a rabid dog now because of that incident. He kills his owner first. So his owner is this man named Joe Camper. He's a mechanic. And his wife, Joe's wife and son, are going away on a little vacation retreat thing because she won the lottery, like $5,000 in the lottery, and they're going to visit her sister. And there's a little sub-story there. But Joe, meanwhile, is left alone with Cujo, and Cujo kills him and slowly is eating him over the course of the book. And it's sad because Cujo didn't mean, he didn't have any malintention. He didn't mean to be mean. He didn't want to be mean. And that's what makes this book so tragic too. Is literally I feel like everything that happens is just all innocence getting destroyed. Is just what this feels like all throughout the book. It's just the destruction of innocence, and it's so hard for me. I fucking love it. I love the themes of this book, but it was so hard to read for me. Maybe I'm just a pussy, probably. Yeah, so the kid and the wife are gone. He dies, Cujo eats him, is eating him. And there's another little group of characters. It's another family, and it is a man and his wife and his son. The wife's son. The wife had been cheating on the man with another man, and she eventually breaks it off, the affair. And the other man gets very angry at this and writes a letter to her husband saying, "Hey, I fucked your wife, pretty much. There was a mole in this specific spot, just so you know I'm telling the truth." And obviously that's destructive to a marriage and to a family, and it's very hard for them. And Vic, the man, the husband, he ends up going on this business trip, even though he probably shouldn't have. He wasn't really in the best mental spot to be going on this business trip and thinking business, but he does it anyway. He thinks maybe it'll do for some good for him, clear his mind. And so when he leaves, the wife and the son, who is I think like 4 or 5 years old, he's a little kid, maybe even younger than that. Honestly, I can't remember. They take their beat up old shitty car up to the mechanic shop, which is Joe, the guy who just got killed by Cujo and is being eaten. They take it up there and they keep having these car issues along the way. It's stalling constantly. The engine's giving out. They roll into Joe's driveway, and as they roll into the driveway, the car gives out for good. It is done. And she's like, at first she's like, oh, well, at least I made it. Until she realizes there's a rabid dog guarding the garage, and they can't get out because he wants them. He's angry at them. This all kind of takes place over, it starts in the afternoon of like a Monday or something like that, goes all the way through the night into the next day, goes all the way through Tuesday, and then like another half of Wednesday. It takes a long time for help for something to fucking give. Always kind of thinking of little solutions to try to get out of the situation, but they just don't pan out in her mind. And what makes this even more dangerous is that this is happening in the middle of the summer, where the heat is increasing constantly, and it's hot, and it gets even hotter in a car, and especially a car with you're scared to roll the windows down too much because the dog might try to get in. They have no AC in the car. They got some snacks, but no water. It's not a good situation. And she's trying to think of solutions. Nothing's panning out in her mind. And so she has to keep kind of sitting there. At one point, she does attempt to do something. It gets attacked by the dog and gets bit. Now she knows, well, shit, that dog had rabies. Now I have fucking rabies. I'm screwed. And she's slowly getting sick. She got bit in her midsection. She's kind of like, she's slowly, she's not doing good. Her son's not doing good next to her because he is sweating out all of his electrolytes. He isn't able to get any nutrients, and that's super important for anybody, but obviously for a young kid too, that's even more important. He's getting sick. He's not feeling good. He starts convulsing and seizing constantly from the heat and the exhaustion. And like I said, that's just another example of the innocence being destroyed. It's just so tragic to see this little kid going through this, and it's sad. It really is fucking sad. This book is sad, and it doesn't have a happy ending, which is part of why I enjoyed it so much. And there's going to be probably full spoilers in the rest of this, by the way. I'm just going to go into the rest of it because it's Cujo, and I want to talk about Cujo. I feel like it's not talked about a whole lot compared to some of his other books, but eventually the husband does get worried because he can't reach his wife, and this is back in the 80s, so they were calling the house phone. There wasn't cell phones. She didn't have any way to call. She at one point was thinking about running into Joe's house from her car to try to rush to the house phone and see if she could get there, but there was just too many chances. What if the door's locked and then Cujo's right on her, and there's too much that could happen. Her husband is trying to call their house phone, trying to figure out where she is, if she's okay. He thinks she's with this other man, possibly. He thinks the other man could have kidnapped her, and what the other man actually did, the other man went into their house while they were gone and trashed the place, and then wrote a note that said, hey, I left a present for you upstairs, baby, and just shot some fucking splooge all over their bedspread and left it for him, and that was it. And that put in Vic, the husband's mind, that, okay, it's definitely this dude. He kidnapped them. He had to have kidnapped them. Long story short, eventually the cops do make a round to Joe's house to try to find if she brought their car to the mechanic there. He sees the car there, and then he notices Cujo a little too late, and the cop dies right by the car. Cop chokes to death on his own blood, and another tragic one. Just a dude doing his job, trying to go check on some people. Cujo, meanwhile, is still getting worse. He's scared of every noise. He's scared of everything. Everything is it looks terrifying to him, and water hurts to drink. He doesn't understand. He thinks that these people are doing it to him. He doesn't understand anything. And he's getting more angry. He's literally sitting, waiting for the woman to come out of the car. And at one point she does. She finally makes a break for it. She gets this bat and starts beating the fuck out of Cujo. And Cujo starts fighting back, and the bat splinters. She shoves the splintered bat right through his eye, out his brain, and eventually he dies. And I felt relieved when Cujo finally died, and not because it's like, oh, thank God that monster's gone. I was just like, thank God he's finally not in pain anymore. It's finally over for him. And while she is killing Cujo, her son, meanwhile, dies in the car of heat and convulsing, and so he dies while she's killing Cujo, and the husband shows up actually right when she's beating Cujo in, and he's the one who discovers that their son is dead, and super sad. She gets treated for rabies. The other owners of Cujo, the wife and the son, are now back in town, and they have seen everything that's gone on, and they end up getting a new dog at the end of it. But they lost their dog, they lost their dad. The other family has lost their son, and the cop died. So it was just a lot of tragedy that all happened within this book, and that's where it leaves off. It is not a very happy ending, and it is a great ending. It is the perfect way. This is probably my favorite Stephen King ending. I don't like a happy ending in horror. I want to still be left with that feeling of dread, and like I said at the beginning of this, that dread persisted throughout this entire book. It really did. I felt pure dread reading this book. And maybe it's just me, and I have a very strong attachment to dogs. I have a couple dogs, and I love them with my whole heart. So it's always hard for me to see dogs being put in these situations, because to me they're just the most innocent creatures in the world. So super fucking amazing book. Highly, highly recommend. I know it's a funny little cut there to just recommending this right out after saying that it's so tragic and so sad, but it really is just a good book to go through and just enjoy it. Like, just be along for the story and let it take you. And it's an emotional one. It's an emotional one, but highly recommend Cujo by Stephen King. I'm glad I finally read it. I don't know if I can reread it anytime soon, but I'm glad I read it. But anyways, I appreciate y'all for watching, and thanks.